Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back. And this is a continuation of the best of 2021. Now, this one's a little different. It's all jazz. And these are not just new releases from 2021, but these are jazz albums that came into my collection one way or another. And I'll explain that as we go along. It's a great time for people to get into jazz with all the last few years of the tone poets and the Blue Note 80s and Blue Note Classics and Sam Records and Acoustic Sound reissues and the single origin records, basically limited editions. When I talk about single origin, I mean, some are over the top crazy price and limited, and that's a whole other story for other videos. But this is music I love. Some of these recordings I've had in different versions over the years, some on compact discs, and some are totally new to me, and some I acquired from my friend from the Coleman collection, and I'm going to insert those in here and call those out as we go in. But let me start out with what I would call the single origin release of John Coltrane's Lush Life. This was the craft recording single batch, one ground whole bean batch that was very limited and caused a stir. There was one after that of Eastern Sound that I had bought and I actually acquired, but I passed it on to my friend Michael at 45 RPM because he's really into these box sets, and I'm not usually a fan of these. Although I will say in the craft box sets, this little slimline collection is quite nice. But do you really need these boxes? I've said many times on my channel, I'd say get rid of the friggin' boxes, save on price, money, wasteful materials, and go for the music. Fantastic. Acoustic Sounds has just reissued or repressed the mono edition of this, so I would say jump on this if you can from Acoustic Sounds. If it's not, if it's out of print, they will repress eventually, so get on the waiting list. Now, the Acoustic Sound series from Verve has been a wonderful sort of a compliment to the Tone Poets, Stoughton jackets and great music, Kevin Gray cuts. Actually, these are Ryan K. Smith cuts, my mistake on that. Mingus is a fantastic record, and it's great to have this version of it. I have had an old Impulse version of it, not an original, but a 70s press. And the other one that is just a stunner of a record, maybe a little adventurous for some, but the Black Saint and the Singer, the Single Lady and the Sinner Lady. Fantastic gatefolds, fantastic pressed and recorded QRP. So records that any jazz fan should have, and amongst my favorite of the year. Another in the whole Verve Acoustic Sound series, the MRC version, Steady and Brown, Clifford Brown and Max Roach. Beautiful record, fantastic. This one really swings, and I suggest this highly. Getting into the more moody, sexy nightlife with jazz vocals, and I know there are some people that just don't get into the jazz vocals, but these are jazz pop vocals on the jazzy side, and two of which I think are stunners and wonderfully arranged and beautifully produced. And this is Black Coffee, Peggy Lee. Obviously, some people say they can find this in the used bins, but I'd say this is one of the best sounding, goes to the original master tapes, as this entire series does. And if you have, if there's one Peggy Lee that you need to get in your collection, this is it. I think it's been repressed finally. Again, all these technically are not going to be limited editions, but because of the backlog of presses, and you know, they are. And then also not second to Peggy Lee, but obviously probably exceeds Peggy Lee. But again, it's not a competition, is it? This music is not a competition. But Sarah Vaughan, and this has obviously Clifford Brown, Herbie Mann, Jimmy Jones, Joe Benjamin, Roy Haynes. It's a fantastic soulful, bluesy jazz vocal record. Again, another one highly recommended. But man, these are my favorites of the year. Again, I'm not doing them in any kind of order. But another series of records, not all came out this year, but these are some records that I acquired now from the Coleman collection. And these are a series of a handful of jazz records. Some of these are analog productions, so I replaced some of my own copies. This is an amazing record. This is back to back. Duke Ellington and Johnny Hodges play the blues, and this is a soothing record. This is a soulful, bluesy record of two of the great jazz modern musicians of the modern jazz age. And this was recorded, I believe, in the 1960s. I could be wrong on that, but it's highly recommended and a fantastic record. Another one I got from the Coleman collection, which is, again, very bluesy, and that's Duke Ellington and Ray Brown, one for Blanton. Ray Brown really kind of emulates in his own way the great styling of Blanton, and this has a bunch of Ellington compositions and a Ma Rainey C.C. Ryder composition, which a lot of you rock fans know. This is originally on Pablo Records, which was Norman Grant's label. Norman Grant's the founder of Verve Records. This is a really great sounding record. Anytime you can get a copy of this, jump on it. This is Analog Productions and their Super Vinyl series. And again, this was from the Coleman collection. He was dappling into jazz in the last 10 years. My buddy Brooks and I kind of pushed him into getting jazz, and he went all in. And a lot of times he got some of these records before they went up crazy prices. So it's a bittersweet way for me to get these in my collection, but they're gorgeous records. Here's another one, Sonny Stitt Blows the Blues. This is a Classic Records. Classic Records is the audiophile label from the 2000 that disbanded, I think, in 2016, 15 or so, but a fantastic version on their super vinyl of that, Sonny Stitt Blows the Blues. Sonny Rollins' Way Out West, a famous cover, famous album, very popular record. I did have the OJC version, which I'm passing on to a friend and replacing it with this Analog Productions. I did listen to them both together. This has the edge, but those OJCs are just really well mastered and well pressed for the most part. So any way you can get this record, I hope they keep it in press. I hope they Analog Productions does a reissue of this. I bet you they do a repress of this at some point. Way Out West. Also from the Coleman collection, one of the great 4 records that Miles Davis recorded as he was going to Columbia Records when he left Prestige Records, and that is Cookin'. There's what cooking, traveling, grooving, screwing, what, you know, I'm kidding. The 4 records he recorded, like, what, in a week or something like that. And these are great records with the first quintet, with John Coltrane, Red Garland, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. And I did not have a copy of this aside from a twofer that was issued in the 70s. So it's a pleasure to have this with this wonderful cover and great Analog Productions issue of Miles Davis. Again, another one I had an OJC version. My favorite, Art Pepper, the West Coast Jazz. This is the rhythm section with Red Garland, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. This also is an Analog Productions great bopping sax West Coast style jazz record. Love this. A couple other things. Now it was a Record Store Day issue. We're getting into a whole different territory, not from the Coleman collection. This is 1971 Live Evil. This is, soon, what, a year, 2 years after Bitches Brew, and wild record with this lovely art cover and Miles Davis. So I'm happy to get this. I did not have a good copy of this. I had a beat up Columbia record. This is one of those color vinyl limited edition things, which I don't know. Do you really need to do that? Should have been brown, like a deep, cool brown or that red. Pick some color up from the cover. I say that's the design aesthetic in me, but a wonderful record. Just musically, an intense record. That's when he's emerging into the rock fusion stylings, and recommended if you like that area of jazz. Now, a label that I've been getting all into, and I try to get everything they do, is Sam Records out of France. And they press a number of albums that are specific, that were originally only released out of various labels in France in the 1950s and early 60s. And they do a fantastic job, all analog recordings. Beautiful original style covers. A lot of these records were on the Barclay label, Barclay discs, as they would say in French, discs, les discs. And this is a series, actually, 3 by Chet Baker. Now, these are technically not limited, but they go to press, so if you ever see these available, jump on them, because they're not outrageous. I don't know what I consider outrageous. They're $35 to $40, give or take, plus any kind of shipping. So they did not come out this year, but they've been repressing them every year, and I got these 3 this year. This one, Chet Baker, the Chet Baker Quartet on Barclay discs. And they come with these slip back plastic resealable covers, folded over cover stock. These sound amazing. These aren't, This one, again, as I forgot to mention, this one is Chet Baker with his quintet with Bobby Jaspar, the great saxophone and flautist. I would suggest also a Bobby Jaspar record on Sam Records. I'm not pulling it now because I did get it a couple years ago, and it's really a great record. Chet Baker Quartet, another Sam Barclay disc, Le Disc, this one too. So any of these, if you see them when they pop up, I would grab them. These are records that are heavily rotated on my Riga RP8 turntable. And again, Afternoon in Paris, John Lewis and Sacha Distel. Piano and vibe player John Lewis from the Modern Jazz Quartet. Highly recommended here. I love this record. And lastly, in the Sam section, this was originally, I believe, on Polydor out of Paris. And this is the Ronnie Bright Trio. This is an easy listen. This is a wonderful record too. And I highly recommend, I mean, for me, you can't go wrong picking up any issue on Sam Records. So I just want to let you know that these are great records and great pressings, and recommended. You gotta kind of seek them out. Not a lot of local stores have them. In Groove occasionally gets them, Analog Productions. You can order them directly from France. If you order a bunch, the shipping kind of goes down. But I would check at their site, Sam Records in Paris. Very highly recommended. Okay, now I've showcased on my various videos a label out of Norway called Rune Grammofon. Rune Grammofon consists of, they put out a lot of records that are very avant-garde, jazz, fusion, neoclassical, minimal, out there music. Not for everyone. The piano record I showed on my best of, fantastic record. You should seek that out. I'll put a link below to the other best of box sets of 21 and the best records, my favorite records of 21. But here are 3. And again, also what I love about them is obviously the music is paramount, but their cover art is wonderful. This is Elephant 9, sort of a fusion outfit that came out. This is Arrival of the New Elders. Interesting, intense, some rock influences, but a great record, Elephant 9's latest record. This is Cracklefont, and the album is called Q, with liner notes by the David Frick, who writes a lot of liner notes on reissues, Rolling Stone editor. A really wonderful writer, and he writes the liner notes on here. They're also kind of out there rock and roll, fusion-y, intense stuff in some cases. Gorgeous record again. This is more of a vintage record. This is Arv Nordheim Electric. This is archival, electronic, noodling, neoclassical, moody, and intense in some cases. But again, a wonderful, it really is not a jazz record, but I'm putting it in here in this little section on Rune Grammofon because I think they're an incredible label, and I can see people going all in on this. But it's adventurous music for the most part, with some exceptions. But if you are one like to take chances, these are records that I would recommend for those of you who do that. Okay, I have to mention this John Coltrane in Seattle record. This was a special release of this year. Now, if you don't have a copy of a love supreme, I suggest you go for the Verve series, the analog, the Acoustic Sound series that has been reissued, and it's a fantastic recording. Do that first. This is an archival release, I think one of only 2 live performances that we know of, and this was recorded at the Penthouse in Seattle in 1965, I believe. This is a really interesting live session. It's not audiophile, it's a small tape recorder situation, emphasizes sort of the bass and drums from one side. Coltrane's sax obviously is there, but it's not a perfectly set up recording. So you have to look at this as an archival piece, as an archaeological dig in a way. And if you love Coltrane and you love this piece of music, this is a no-brainer. If you're not into it that way, there's the Penthouse Club and Long Gone out of Seattle. But this, again, was something really special that came out this year. Obviously, we find them digging up and finding recordings from artists like Coltrane and Thelonious Monk, and these tapes are being discovered left and right and keep coming out. Here's another one. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messers. This is First Flight to Tokyo, the lost 1961 recordings. And this is a great outfit because he has Lee Morgan and Wayne Shorter. Those 2 horn players alone just make this an incredible album. Bobby Timmons and Jaime Merritt. So I highly recommend this. Obviously, you got the intense, wonderful outfit of Art Blakey. Art Blakey has always been, for me, one of these great talent scouts. Not unlike Miles Davis or John Mayall, where they've had a great series of musicians kind of come through the classes of Art Blakey or the school of Miles or the school of John Mayall, and then work their way up and go on their own and create some fantastic music beyond their tenure with Art Blakey and those artists. But this is a really interesting record, really beautiful designed issue, and one that I'm really enjoying, and it's a blaster too. You can really crank this one. Now let's get into the Tone Poets. I'm just going to go through these quickly. There's countless videos on the music on Tone Poets. Joe Harley's entry and curation of wonderful, mostly music from the Blue Note catalog, also from World Pacific, under the UMG umbrella, the Universal Music Group that Blue Note is a part of. And so, Passing Ships, Andrew Hill, fantastic record. I showcased this already on one of my best of videos. One Flight Up, Dexter Gordon, with Donald Byrd, Kenny Drew, Niels Henning Ordsted, and Art Taylor. And this is sort of a 1965 recording, really well done. A favorite of mine, all these are favorites, that's why I'm showcasing them, but it depends on the mood you're in. Great Sonny Clark here. Sonny Clark, piano player with Hank Mobley, Donald Byrd, Paul Chambers, and Art Blakey. Art Blakey keeps showing up on all of these, obviously. And we know about the Tone Poets that has the Michael Kuskuna curated Francis Wolff collection, and he curates it and gets them into Joe Harley's hands, and what they did with Music Matters Jazz, and he's doing obviously with Tone Poet and Sonny Clark's My Conception. All great. Now this is a fun one for me that I didn't really know of. My friend Brooks taught me about Curtis Amy, and this is Katanga. You just want to yell Katanga from the top of a building or the top of the mountains. Katanga, look at that beautiful cover. This is a fun, outrageous party record. Katanga, Lonely Woman, Native Land. And this has Dupree Bolton on trumpet, Jackie Wilson piano, Ray Crawford, Vic Gaskin, and Doug Sides. And what a record. I think this is the unusual record of the bunch from Tone Poets this year in 2021. And this is one that's easily a record that could be a favorite amongst people who are new to jazz. And I think it'd be fun. If you're not into it and you're not a jazz fan, you're probably not watching this video, but if you do, Katanga would be for you. A later entry is the 1968 McCoy Tyner expansions. I go hot and cold with the 70s output, but I mean, obviously you know, him playing with Coltrane. Great piano player, amazing piano player. Fantastic records, expansions, a little more in that late 60s vibe, but highly recommended as well. And again, you know, the guy that seems to do everything, and he's still around, and then we're lucky to have him, one of the great remaining members of the original, or the second quintet, Miles Davis Quintet, is Wayne Shorter. Great composer, great arranger, and just a great player. Now, he plays tenor sax, and on this is a bigger sound for him, because you got Freddie Hubbard trumpet and flugelhorn, Alan Shorter flugelhorn, Gretchen Moncur III on trombone, James Spaulding alto sax. So you got, what, 4 horn players there, 5 even, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 horn players. Then you got Herbie Hancock on piano, Ron Carter on bass, and Joe Chambers on drums. We're just missing Tony Williams to have that original, or that second quintet, but this is a fantastic record. The All-Seeing Eye by Wayne Shorter. Coming from the classic series of Blue Note, and these are also mastered by Kevin Gray. This is 6 Pieces of Silver, Horace Silver Quintet on Blue Note. These are really wonderful series of records. Now, this record I almost didn't get because I think this hokey cover, but fantastic Christmas record, Duke Pearson's Merry Old Soul. I'm just going to show that because it's a fun record. That's exactly what the record sounds like in a way. But it's Christmas classics and some originals. So fun set for the holiday season. Don't let this hokey cover discourage you on this one. Just one of the newer ones. I've had this, an old version of this, the great organ player of Jimmy Smith. This is the incredible Jimmy Smith Home Cookin'. Highly recommend if you like jazz organ. And if you don't like jazz organ, you're a little too snooty for my taste. So I recommend get this one. It's a good price, recommended. And just recently one, and this is the Herbie Nichols. And I know I haven't listened to this version yet. I know this music, the prophetic Herbie Nichols. And he's a piano player, and again, Art Blakey shows up on drums. So really a good late year release. I haven't played again this version, but I know it from the music. And lastly, in this section, this is not a tone poet. This has not anything to do with it. This is a record that I found recently on my tour of San Francisco at Amoeba. It was a used copy, and this is an Analog Productions reissue of Illinois Jacquet Swings the Thing. This is 45 RPM. Amazing sounding record. This I've played more than any jazz record in the last month since I've been home. There is a version on here of Harlem Nocturne, which is the sexiest, smoothest late night saxophone sound you'll ever hear. And if you can find a copy of this, jump on it immediately. Gorgeous record, 2 LP, 45 RPM. Just an organic sound as if you're in the studio with them listening on the monitors during the recording of this. Was originally on Verve Records, and this was an Analog production. Looks like it was issued in 2012, but I found a used copy of this. And this just might be my favorite jazz album, single jazz album I've acquired in 2021 by far. I'd be remiss if I didn't include this. One of the greatest, arguably the most famous, popular jazz album of all time, Kinda Blue, Miles Davis, Columbia Records. UHQR, 25,000 copies, 33 1/3 by Analog Productions. Controversial, a little bit, $100 in a box like this. Now, it sounds great. There were some issues with some copies that were noisy. I got one that's fairly quiet, but this super vinyl is supposed to be extremely quiet, is nowhere near as quiet as those Analog Productions, also pressed by QRP. The Acoustic Sounds series, I mean, also pressed by QRP, or the Tone Poets, or even the classics. This should be quite silent, made by hand, by mere mortals. Limited edition, 25,000 copies. I'll probably do a 45 RPM version. It is a great sounding record. Mine is quiet enough, but but it should be, as advertised, totally quiet. Comes in this slipcase, which I think is a waste of time, waste of money, waste of space. You know, people say, well, if you don't like the case, throw it away. You're not going to throw the case away. This is all you need. This is how this album should be released, just like these great Tone Poets and Verve Acoustic Sounds series. Fantastic record. It does sound amazing. These are cut from the classic records plates, as I recall. And I need to just let you know that this is really good. It's about to sell out. So if you don't have it, get it now or you'll pay later, as they say. Buy now, cry later. But it's probably the best version of this you're going to get. It is better than the double Mo-Fi 45 RPM, which is a little bass heavy. I don't mind that one, but this is smoother, silkier, just greater dynamics. Highly recommended, but is no reason you need this stuff. I'm not a big fan of these big box sets that Mo-Fi and Analog Productions is putting out. I think, well, look at that. What a waste. What a waste of space. Look at that. Looks like your old Encyclopedia Britannica spines that you threw away. You dragged through all your moves after you got out of college and your parents didn't want to keep them in the garage anymore, right? That's an autobiographical quote or story right there. So anyway, I got to mention this album. Fantastic record, and get it now. Otherwise, you're going to lose out and pay a shitload later. Now, in closing, for 2021, my favorite jazz albums. These are 2 box sets that I acquired this year. They're not new by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, they represent a part of a discography of 2 separate artists that, to me, mean so much to me. Both these box sets are by 2 piano players playing in totally different styles and, in a way, subgenres within the jazz. And one is a set that I've had on compact discs for, I don't know, over 20 years now. And that's from the Mosaic catalog. And that is the complete Capitol recordings of the Nat King Cole Trio. Mosaic is the curated label of Michael Kuskuna, who had worked for Blue Note Records when United Artists had Blue Note in the 70s for the most part. Michael Kuskuna also now is a curator of the Francis Wolff collection. But he started this label, Mosaic, which had a lot of CDs, primary CDs, although they did do some vinyl issues. I had the 18 CD set of this. This is the trio recordings from Capitol Records. Lot of wonderful vocals by, to me, one of the great jazz pop vocals of all time, Nat Cole. Great piano playing, the great trios, so you don't have all the big orchestration stuff, the lush recordings like you would have later. And I remember when Coleman found a copy of this about 6-7 years ago, and when his sister reached out to me to curate the collection, she asked me if I wanted some of the record. I said, well, let me think about it, but there's one thing I know right off I would like to buy from you, and that was this set, 27 LPs, too much for mere mortals. But it is a beautiful, amazing listen. On CD, actually, it might even be an easier listen on compact disc, because I would put these on and put them on random and just play them all straight through when I had a CD changer. And it's just fantastic music. It just makes you feel good. Route 66, Straighten Up and Fly Right. I mean, you know a lot of these songs, and if you don't, you need to get yourself some Nat King Cole Trio music. So I was so excited. Bittersweet way to acquire this set, obviously, but I know Coleman would want me to have it. So this is one of my very favorite acquisitions, jazz acquisitions, actually, of all acquisitions in 2021. It's just a major body of work from one of the best jazz pop interpreters of all time, and that's Nat Cole. The other I got a little in a different way, and those of you who watch my channel know that My friend Coffee Dave and I went in on the Coleman collection. We bought it, we curated, we kept a lot for itself. Coming up later this week, I hope to have a showcase with the archivist of 10 albums that we each pulled, our favorite albums from the Coleman collection. But this is a set that Coffee Dave had in his house for the last 10, 15 years. Never opened it. I didn't even know he had it. And he mentioned it one day and he goes, I got it, I don't listen to it. So we did a trade, and that is this fabulous Riverside recordings of Bill Evans. And this, to me, these are the most amazing albums that Bill Evans ever created for Riverside Records, mostly under the production of Orrin Keepnews, the starter, the founder of Riverside Records, is later sold to Fantasy. And this is a set that is on hiatus or out of print from Analog Productions, 45 RPM, 2 LPs each. Stunning sound. This was a sealed, and I did a trade with Coffee Dave. And I'm just going to quickly flip through these, not talk about the music. If you don't know these records, some of these records are pure classics that everyone needs in their jazz collection. My Heart Sings, Bill Evans Trio. Bill Evans Trio at Shelley Manhole. Shelley Manhole. Shelley's Manhole. That's a mouthful to say. Know what I mean? This is a Cannonball Adderley date with Bill Evans, but it's a major part of this curated collection. Moonbeams, the trio, new jazz composition. Now this was his debut album. Some feel it's not up to par, but this is a fantastic record. I have another version, OJC version of this, and you can find this usually fairly inexpensive in the bins, the original, or later reissues of it. I find that this is a wonderful record. Orrin Keepnews produced, New Jazz Conceptions by Bill Evans. Portraits in Jazz. Now this is a classic that everyone needs in their collection. There needs to be a good version of this. There's talk that this whole box is going to be repressed, but at a cost of about $900, I think. I think originally it was $600 when it came out. But it's fantastic. Portrait in Jazz. This is one of the key records of his career, Bill Evans' career. Of course, Waltz for Debbie is arguably his signature song, and he's recorded it live. I was really fortunate enough to see Bill Evans in the mid-70s, around 76 or so, once at the Keystone Corner at the Great Jazz Club in North Beach in San Francisco, and then the following day, down at the Bach Dynamite Beach Society down near Half Moon Bay in Miramar, just south of San Francisco, where they had jazz things in the afternoon. A lot of artists that would play in San Francisco at the Keystone would do these kind of Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon sessions at this beach house, and fantastic, very loose and wonderful experience. What a great place to see Bill Evans. Everybody Digs Bill Evans, another classic in his catalog. Now this is the one that everyone is lusting after. This needs to come out on a good version, reasonably priced version of it. It will probably be in this box, but they do need to issue this singly. You can get these like digital versions, cheap versions of this, but I would wait and try to find a good sounding version. But one of the great jazz records of all time, live dates. And this is Bill Evans Trio, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, the great jazz club in New York. Explorations and Interplay. What a great modernist cover that is. So these are my favorite jazz albums that I acquired in 2021. Some new issues, some reissues, some found archival tapes, and some from the Coleman collection and my friend's collection that I acquired. But all great records, wonderful sounding records, and what a great time to be into jazz music. I mean, it's always a great time, but right now people are discovering it who had never been into it before. So thanks for watching. Put your suggestions, comments, recommendations down. Hit the subscribe button. If you're not a subscriber, I would appreciate that. And have a wonderful holiday season. Mazzy loves you.